Happy Halloween, everyone! MVL here, back again for another horror review. And I've got to get that bad taste of Stephen King's F-13 out of my mouth. Goodness knows I'm still feeling the effects of that. So, I'm actually going to play a good game, or trilogy of games as it would be. This is the Blair Witch Limited Edition Triple Pack, a series of survival horror games from 2000, which you may not have heard of. It should not be confused with the 2019 psychological survival game of the same name, Blair Witch, which you may have heard of. Well, this is right up my alley. The triple pack includes 3 games, which are Volume 1, Rustin, Parr, Volume 2, The Legend of Coffin Rock, and Volume 3, The Elly, Kedward Tale. They were developed and released individually, but it's pretty cool to have them together like this. Anyway, without further ado, let the horror begin. Starting with Volume 1, Rustin, Parr, things get scary quickly when the game doesn't work. If you play PC games, you're probably used to this kind of crap. I mean, technical hurdles, excuse me. One of the reasons I lean towards console gaming is the ease of use for plug-and-play enjoyment. You can just sit back with a controller, not having to punch over a keyboard with a mouse. I mean, where do I even put this thing? And you also have to scour the web for patches to make something work. It's hell. So the game requires a launcher called Nocturne. Now, does that sound familiar? Could it be a dark calling to things that go bump in the night? Well, no. But it is significant. The name is actually a reference to the shadowy organization of the same name featured in the survival horror game of the same name, Nocturne, which I have right here. But why is that? Now brace yourself. For the Blair Witch Trilogy is actually a follow-up to the game Nocturne, and they're from the same developer, and it mixes both worlds together in one crazy concoction. In fact, the shadowy organization called Nocturne even appears directly in Rustin, Parr, teaching you the tricks to take down monsters in the early goings of the game. And the main character of Nocturne, the Stranger, even makes an appearance in Rustin, Parr directly. So as it happens, Blair Witch Volume 1 Rustin, Parr is by the creators of, and a sequel to, Nocturne, which in itself was heavily inspired by Blood Rain, which was also by the same developers. Terminal Reality. Whoa, I'm getting ahead of myself. Maybe I'll come to these another time. For now, let's focus on Blair Witch Volume 1, Rustin, Parr. So the game won't install PCs, hey? Well, not to worry. If you go to Windows and delete a system file, then hurrah, it will. But you didn't think it would be that easy, did you? It installed, sure, but the game won't launch. No, that would be too easy. But here, fortunately, a website called The Patch Scrolls saved my bacon. There's a fix which will give you a new launcher, and when you click on it, it'll make a text file. Delete the old Nocturne launcher and copy over the new one and the text file, and finally, you'll be able to play the game. Although, unfortunately, because it's a PC, I was still experiencing errors with the higher quality 3D textures and higher resolution modes. So the graphics here could look better, but probably because I'm using a more modern computer than it was designed for, it just won't recognize my hardware. Some things don't work properly. Although I did get it to run well enough to record, but you'll have to bear with some issues like the character's clothing going crazy and dancing all over the place due to messed up physics for no particular reason. I can tell you the game does run much better with far fewer issues on a Windows 98 or 2000 machine. Unfortunately, I don't have a computer with an operating system that I can record from without it freezing. I tried a bunch of different stuff, like using a capture card into another PC, but nothing works, so I'm running and recording it with OBS on a Windows 7 machine, with some sacrifices to make it run smoothly. And all this really goes towards what I don't like about personal computers. It took a really long time to get this working. Let's see if it was worth it. So now we're finally able to play the game. Albeit somewhat visually compromised, we can finally begin. And I will say I won't be showing the entirety of each game. Rather, I'll be showing enough to give you a good impression of each game, partially because you may be enticed to experience the games yourself from what you see, and also because I want this done before it gets dark. It's scary out there. As we begin, you take on the part of a new agent, Elspeth Doc Holliday, another Nocturne character, being trained for your assignment. Nocturne tells you the controls where you use every button from the far reaches of the keyboard. Once your fingers are stretched, and you remember how to move, run, draw your weapon and use a flashlight, shoot and melee, you're ready for action. I won't say the controls are simple, but it's still easier to control than Star Fox Zero. It's actually pretty fun. The movement takes a little getting used to, as you can only turn and aim with the mouth and move with the directional buttons. The game also features fixed camera angles as well. Some people love this, some people really hate it. But I'm actually very used to it from other survival horror games, and I personally enjoy it. Funnily enough, in the tutorial, they advise you to run to a better camera angle if you find yourself trapped. Now, if that's not an admission to clunky camera, I don't know what is. But I mean, hey, it still plays worlds better than Tomb Raider, Angel of Darkness. The training mission has you dispatch captured monsters before you go off to investigate the Blair Witch. Stranger, who would be your partner, refuses to accompany you, as he doesn't believe witches are real, even though he has personally battled ghosts, zombies, and werewolves. Witches are a step too far, so you go it alone. On location, in the early stages of the game, Doc poses as a relative for a missing person, and sets out to gather information. This does a good job to build the tension, although the opening tutorial section already included monsters to teach you the controls, so you know the fear is coming. As you gather information from the locals, at a local diner, a promising lead drops the name of the witch, which appropriately brings on a storm. If you say the name of evil, evil listens.
Heck, it still scares me now.
I'm planning on visiting Rustin Parr's place.
Well, you just be careful, man. Those woods are plenty dangerous.
Wild animals?
Animals? No, ma'am. Animals stay out of those woods. They know better. Sometimes animals have more sense than people.
So what should I be careful of?
I pray to God you don't find out. She's still down there in the water, waiting for another victim.
You're talking about the Blair Witch.
Don't ever want to say that. She hears you when you say her name. Stay away from that creek, man. For the love of God, stay away from that forest altogether. Now, good night.
With a storm coming, you retreat to the hotel and try to get some rest, but something spooky wakes you in the night. Gathering supplies, Doc hunts the frightening force which leads you like a lamb to the slaughter to the sheriff's office, where you see things have taken a terrifying turn for the worst. To Doc's dismay, the whole terrible town has turned to monsters, and it's a fight for survival for the would-be investigator. After narrowly besting the baddies, a light draws you to the church. But this is not a light of hope. It becomes clear the forces of darkness are playing with you, and in a desperate measure, Doc follows the proverbial white rabbit to the last house on the left. Seeking answers, and in a frantic, flustered frenzy, Doc dispatches the monsters. But when the penny drops, Doc realizes they weren't monsters after all, and she's unknowingly terminated the entire town. Overcome with grief, she turns her weapon to herself, and the last thing she sees is the stranger looking down on her body. This is the end. Or is it? Because it was all a dream. And that's just the start of the waking nightmare of the Blair Witch, Volume 1, Rustin Parr. My, that's some scary stuff. I'd say come out from behind the sofa, but the terror doesn't end there. Now let's take a look at Blair Witch Volume 2, The Legend of Coffin Rock.
Your time is not up, soldier. I have need of you yet.
Mister?
The game starts off spooky right away, with your character facing death, only to be saved by a young girl named Robin Weaver. Your character is brought back from death itself with no memory of what happened to them, and as such, they are appropriately named Lazarus. And also, no one seems to be that bothered that you are clearly some kind of zombie. Unfortunately, whilst you are being tended to, the woods called for young Robin Weaver, and you agree to venture forth to rescue her. Along the way, as he treads familiar ground, Lazarus experiences flashbacks to his life as a soldier, each step bringing him one step closer to understanding his fate. As you can see, each game uses the same engine and much of the same assets, so likewise to the previous game, this game also has 3D enhancements that I was not able to utilize for this recording since it had unfortunately, like with the previous game, lead to walls and objects becoming somewhat see-through. So I'm afraid we'll miss out on improved models and lighting again because of that, although the good news is this game still controls well, as it controls much the same way except for no reason whatsoever, movement has moved to the W, A, S and D keys from the directional buttons of the previous game. I find it very interesting that the story of this game sounds familiar, from chatter and old bygone stories from the townspeople of the previous game, although admittedly I'd need to tread further to verify that. It does however seem that the seeds for this game were sown beforehand, which is very cool. Although it has to be said different teams worked on the 3 games, with of course Terminal Reality making Volume 1, Human Head making Volume 2, and Ritual Entertainment responsible for Volume 3, as we shall soon see. 2 down, only 1 is left. It's getting dark, and the night is dark and full of terrors. It's time for the thrilling third and final game in the trilogy, Blair Witch Volume 3, the Elly Kedward tale. This game takes you back in time, and also back to using the directional buttons for movement for some reason. The game has a foreboding start. Despite this, it's the most action-orientated of the 3 games. The biggest advantage here is that you find ammo and health from fallen enemies, which is really handy. Rather than having to find healing items hidden around like you did on the previous games, if you are low on hit points, some skillful combat avoiding enemies will reward you by getting you right back into the fight. Here you play as witch hunter Jonathan Parr on your travels to the Blair Township, where villagers flee the town fearful of people being taken away from the evils of dark magic. Upon seeking out the local priest and town magistrate, you find 2 people taken into holding for the atrocities befell the town, an outspoken town drunk and a mysterious woman. Now the drunk won't say a word until you wet his whistle, which takes you into a nearby barn and also into action. But once you satiate his thirst, he's still somewhat unhelpful. But now the lady takes notice of your actions and urges you to rush to Coffin Rock, as evil is afoot. When you get there, the forces of darkness are attempting to carry out a sacrifice, so you must keep the demons at bay. It's here where ammo and health dropping from enemies becomes a welcome addition, as you battle many more enemies than in the previous games. Once you beat the bad guys and save the girl, you continue your quest, being awarded a better weapon by the magistrate for your efforts. But the magistrate still thinks the woman he arrested in the cells is responsible. It's now that the priest requests you recover an artifact from the graveyard to upgrade your power. And naturally, the graveyard is full of monsters. I mean, come on. What did you expect? It's a tough battle, but again, this is where the enemies dropping health when defeated really aids gameplay. Once that is done, you seek out the woman in the cells once again, who freely admits to being a witch, but claims that she is not evil. She asks for her spellbook from her home as a show of good faith in effort to aid you further, claiming she can cast no spells where she is, as the priest, who informed you of this previously, had warded her cell against such. And I mean, she can't be all that bad. I'm more concerned about the drunk, who's glitched and floating in their cell. Now that's crazy. So you make your way to the last house on the left, get half scared out of your mind, and take the bad book back to the witch, who then points you in the right direction, so you don't get lost in the woods. At that point, I got lost in the woods. But since the enemies drop ammo and health, it's not really that bad, since you can stay stocked up as long as you fight smart. And getting smart leads you to your final destination, and to the home of all evil.
What madness is this? Away, witch hunter! This place holds only suffering for you! Return to me when you summon your courage, so that I can have the pleasure of sending you to join your family in hell!
Well, that was an experience. These games had their quirks, but overall, I thought they were good. Under a better light with the right hardware, they'd look even better. Well, I hope you enjoyed seeing these largely forgotten gems in my House of Horrors. With that done, you know, the moonlight looks so tempting. And I'm not afraid of the dark or things that go bump in the night, so I think I'll take a night walk.
Okay, this is more than a little embarrassing because I seem to be lost in the woods. I didn't even know there were woods outside of my house, but I've stumbled into woods, so I'm lost. I've got no idea where I'm going. It's getting really dark, and there's lots of noises around here. What's that? Oh my goodness. I think this is where the noise came from. What the hell is that? This is where the noise came from, but no, it can't be. From the deepest depths of hell. Star Fox Zero? Is someone playing with me? Am I being played with right now? Is this some kind of sick joke? Star Fox Zero. As I live and breathe. I've got to get out of here. Alright guys, I've got to get out of here. Star Fox Zero? Who would leave that line around? I mean, honestly, who would even play that game? It's getting really dark and I've got to... What the hell is that? Oh, sweet cod. Oh, cheese and rice! It isn't. It is! No, it can't be. It can't be. From the further reaches of hell. Tomb Raider. Angel of Darkness. I thought I destroyed you. I've got to get out of here. I've got to get out of here. Alright guys, I'm really scared right now. The camera's right up my nose. I don't know what to tell you. These games shouldn't be here. Oh my goodness. If they're here, then it might be back. Stay away from me, Stephen King's F-13. Don't come any closer. No.